Welcome to Sunday School this June 19th, Juneteenth of 2022. But welcome to Sunday School and happy Father's Day to all of you fathers, or to any of you out there who may have had a father or have a father. This is a wonderful day to remember your father. My father would have been this year 101 years old had he not succumbed to the demon tobacco. And I will never forgive the tobacco industry for debilitating my father for a number of years. I know it was supposedly his own choice, but he was helplessly addicted to cigarettes. But that's neither here nor there. I miss him. Anyway, today is Juneteenth, and it's a date that always should have been recognized among school children of all ages. But Constance and I were discussing this morning the fact that we're both 75 years old, and we grew up and went to school in the 50s and 60s, and we didn't learn much about American history in school. As a matter of fact, for all of my school years, most of my textbooks in grammar school and junior high and high school passed some kind of philosophical, political muster through a committee in Texas. And this committee in Texas, school book committee of some kind, made sure that we learned nothing but the most superficial and flattering facts about American history and world history for that matter. Now, it's not that we as youngsters, cared that much. We just wanted to get through the school year and get out of school and get on with life. But it was, looking back at it, it was monstrously, it was a monstrous thing to do. And it gave an entire generation, our generation, of people that thought that reality and human nature and everything else was some kind of a 1950s sitcom, polished. It turned a generation into people that marched mindlessly off to Vietnam. And those that came back were pretty damn screwed up. Okay, and most of those are in are the aging legislators today. And this idea that Juneteenth, which was the date that in Texas, many years after the Emancipation Proclamation, Texas allowed their slaves to know that they were free. And today, things like that are being criticized in the halls of Congress as being, labeling it critical race theory. How dare you? Can you imagine if after World War II, the people in Germany were denied the information surrounding the Holocaust and what their nation had been pulled into. No, just the opposite. They were faced with their ugly recent past. South Africa, the same thing. Immediately they were faced with it. And but anyway, this brings me to the subject of today that I thought I'd cover for Juneteenth, and that's the basic rights of human beings. And Crowley wrote a paper. Now, it's not one of these Class A documents that you can't change the style of the letter, and it's not any of the official AA documents that are labeled for instruction purposes or for ritual work or anything else. But it's just a paper signed by the man, Aleister Crowley. And it's the rights of man, and it's called Liber Oz. Now, Liber Oz is a list of things. Man has the right to do this and do this, and man has the right to do this and do this and do this. And it's peppered with quotes from the Book of the Law and things like that. But because it's not a Class A document, and because of the evolution of language, especially English, where we now know that when Crowley was saying man, he meant everybody. So you could just as easily say woman has the right to do this or that. But it's not violating any thelemic literature to tweak it enough to say that I have the right to do all of this. And so listen to this. This is how Liber Oz would sound if you use your own personal pronoun. There is no God but me. I have the right to live by my own law, to live in the way that I will to do, to work as I will, to play as I will, to rest as I will, to die when and how I will. I have the right to eat what I will, to drink what I will, to dwell where I will, to move as I will on the face of the earth. I have the right to think what I will, to speak what I will, to write what I will, to draw, paint, carve, etch, mold, build as I will, to dress as I will. I have the right to love as I will. I have the right to kill those who would thwart these rights. Now, that's the sticking point for many, many people. And you have to remember that Aleister Crowley himself never killed anybody. Well, maybe he shot a bandit who was trying to rob him in India in his youth, but I don't think he killed anybody. If he did, he wasn't going around killing people when he said, I have the right to wear this hat. Bam. Okay. Now that is a recipe for fearlessness. But I think we can all agree that Liber Oz isn't a license to be blind or stupid or deluded. Neither does it protect, exonerate, or absolve us from the consequences of exercising these rights. Liber Oz is not a Class B document, and that's a book or an essay as a result of ordinary scholarship or enlightened in earnest. And it's not a Class C document. composed of matter to be regarded as suggestive rather than anything else. It's not included in the AA rituals or instructions, so it's not a Class D document. Okay. You might be surprised to learn that Liber Oz is not even a Class E document that consists of public announcements and broadsheets. Liber Oz is simply signed Aleister Crowley. Not Frater Perdurabo, not Onkoff Nakansu, not OM, not 666, not OSV, not VVVVV. Not even Tomegatherion. Liber Oz was written and signed by the man, Aleister Crowley, a man declaring the rights of man. Crowley labels Liber Oz an historic document and tells us that it was meant to, quote, convey the OTO plan in words of one syllable. For a concise and authoritative statement concerning the OTO plan, we might turn to Section 2 of the revised 1917 Constitution, which tells the world, that the principal purpose of the OTO is to teach true brotherhood and to make it a living power in the life of humanity. I think I'll repeat that. The principal purpose of the OTO is to teach true brotherhood and to make it a living power in the life of humanity. As such, Liber Oz appears to be intended for each and every man, woman, and child upon the earth. Liber Oz is not just for OTO members. It's not just for brothers of or aspirants to the AA. Liber Oz is not a message reserved for self-proclaiming Thelemites. It's not just for magicians. Liber Oz is the declaration of the rights of each and every human being whose evolving consciousness has developed a sense of self, and whose self-identity has formulated a will. I think I'll repeat that. Liber Oz is the declaration of the rights of each and every human being whose evolving consciousness has developed a sense of self, and whose self-identity has formulated a will. Liber Oz in its present form was written in 1941, just 6 years before Crowley's death. 7 years later, on December 10th, 1948, as the nations of the earth were still convulsing from the catastrophe of World War II, United Nations representatives from all around the world formally adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's a document I believe everyone, especially each of us, should own and study. If you don't have one, when I first delivered this speech, I brought copies for everyone. It's an inspiring little document worthy, in my opinion, of universal acceptance. It's remarkably thorough, declaring in 30 brief articles a broad spectrum of the economic, social, cultural, political, and civil rights of all people on our planet. But it's important for those of us who claim to be Thelemites to remember that ultimately it's impossible for the United Nations or any community or state or national government or church or order to grant anyone these rights. No charter, no constitution, no warrant, no document or scripture of any kind has the power or authority to award or grant any of these rights. No, we all, the enlightened and the unenlightened, the innocent and the guilty, we already possess them. They remain unactualized until the liberating instant we recognize and accept the fact that they are ours by virtue of being born, by the virtue of being alive, by the virtue of existing in this dimension as human beings. These rights cannot be purchased or won or rationed or doled out or allocated or allotted to us by any tribe or cult or imaginary god or world teacher or by any mythical special privileges we've inherited because of the circumstances of our birth or our wealth or our race, or our genes, or our family, or our tribe, or our nation. These are rights, not privileges, extended to us by some national or international or interplanetary government or club or order. Thelemite to Thelemite, and I'll be perfectly frank. If you still believe, or even in the back of your mind believe, that any organization or entity outside yourself has the power to grant or deny you any of these rights, then perhaps you're not yet prepared to claim or exercise them. I'll go even further. If you believe there is an entity outside yourself capable of granting or withholding any of these rights from you, then perhaps you're not yet prepared to claim and exercise them. Until you've awakened to your birthright, your sleeping consciousness will continue to divide dream self against dream self. You'll remain self-hoodwinked, self-bound, self-medicated. You'll continue to bamboozle yourself and only fantasize that you've transcended the flat earth, dying sun, divine right of kings, slave consciousness of the Osirian aeon. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a noble and idealistic attempt at enshrining what universal rights might look like if ever they were to be put into practice by motivated people and institutions guided by a modicum of human decency and by a desire to expedite the evolutionary unfoldment of human potentiality. But thou hast no right but to do thy will. And Liber Oz is a far more visceral declaration. It declares why we fundamentally possess these rights. I personally believe that as far as Liber Oz is concerned, we are free to identify ourselves as anything we sincerely believe we are. Any philosophy, any political persuasion, any gender, and yes, any religion. If we are free to believe that something truly is our will, even if it violates civil or criminal laws, even if to the rest of the world it appears embarrassingly stupid, misguided, or dangerous. It's impossible for you or me or anyone else to ultimately judge on a karmic level what is or is not another person's will. You're free to believe that something is truly your will, even if all your friends and loved ones think you are out of your fucking mind and you're making the biggest mistake of your life. Who are we to judge on a huge karmic, cosmic level? Who knows? Perhaps your stupid, self-destructive behavior might be part of your will to die when and how you will. I can only speak for myself. And I might just be a completely naive and deluded old man. But it's clear to me that I have a number of unique and particularly important things I must do with my life in the short time I'm present in this dimension. Things I must do for the benefit of my own awakening. Things I must do for the benefit of the consciousness of units that surround me. It's my job. It's the price I pay for admission to my existence. Call it destiny, call it my great work, call it ego, call it madness. I don't give a shit what you call it. There is no God but me. And it is my private, personal, selfish, self-centered, narcissistic best interest to live and pursue the great work in a relatively safe, healthy, stable environment, undisturbed as much as possible by the distraction of violent social unrest. And a big part of my pursuit of happiness includes not being tormented by the preventable pain and unhappiness of other consciousness units around me. Maybe it's a character flaw, but I can no longer segregate their consciousness from my own, and it unsettles me. It irritates me. It makes me unhappy, especially when I know there are things I can do that might address and correct the situation. It's the least I can do. Indeed, I'm counseled by my holy guardian angel that it is one of the unique and particularly important things I must do in the time I have in this dimension. But that's just my life, my great work, my will. You are your own unique consciousness unit. In the OTO and ultimately in Thelema, one's individual social sensitivities and politics are entirely a personal matter, and they have to be. For Constance and me, it feels perfectly natural to support laws, measures, candidates, and parties that promote policies that support equality and strong civil liberties and such. But our progressive attitudes aren't dictated by Liber Oz or the Book of the Law or our interpretation of the tenets of Thelema. Ours are personal attitudes, unique to us. They spring in part from our youthful idealism, the romantic vision formed at the beginning of our long and adventurous life together. Attitudes formed naturally by our observations and interpretations of what appears to be objective reality, and the values that continue to nourish by maturing wisdom our evolving sense of human decency. We neither know nor care if you find our attitudes admirable or childish or naive. But please, no matter how much you may agree or disagree with our positions on social or political issues, don't be quick to credit or blame either our wisdom or our folly, or on our acceptance or current understanding of Thelema. And for God's sake, don't blame the OTO on our attitudes. Okay, that is my Juneteenth sermon. I hope I didn't scare you away with that. But anyway, I hope you found that at least interesting and food for thought. So Sunday school is over for another week. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, when it's actually a federal holiday tomorrow. So if you're going to the bank, stay home. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.